There are plenty of reasons why you might want to consider renouncing your U.S. citizenship, but there are also a lot of valid reasons not to. I'm Kristin, and I've been living abroad pretty much full-time since 2002, and I've been helping other people move overseas since 2005. Now, by far, the number one reason that Americans choose to renounce their U.S. citizenship is because of the high cost, burden, and headache of filing and paying U.S. taxes abroad. If you've never lived abroad before, just to give you a hint of what it's like, you've got extra paperwork to fill out. You might need to hire a special accountant to help you with your tax return. You could be liable for state taxes, self-employment taxes, social security taxes, income taxes, capital gains taxes, and this can get increasingly complex. The higher your net worth is, the more investments you have, the more assets you own. But despite all this paperwork and the extra money that I'm paying every year just to be a US citizen, it's still not enough for me to give up my US citizenship. As I mentioned, I've been living abroad for such a long time now that I'm probably just a bit desensitized to the whole process. I know which forms I have to file. I have a good accountant. I know all of the deadlines. So it's not as big of an obligation and a burden to me as it was back in 2005 when I had no idea what I was doing and I had to research everything from scratch. Another benefit that I have is that I'm from Florida. We don't have any state taxes here, and that might be much different for you if you're from New York or California and you're living abroad without being able to change your state tax domicile. There are also some benefits for US expats who are living abroad. We get a few tax breaks here and there. We have the foreign earned income exclusion. There are tax treaties with quite a few countries. So it's not all bad, but it's not exactly ideal either. Now, maybe I haven't hit the right net worth to where I feel like I'm losing out on so much money that it would be worth renouncing. Eduardo Severin, the former co-founder of Facebook, for example, he renounced, but he's a billionaire. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be a millionaire or a billionaire to consider renouncing your citizenship, but the higher your net worth, the more complex your financial situation is, and the more money that's at stake, naturally, the more seriously you might want to consider renouncing. So you might be thinking, why would you be paying taxes in a country you don't live in? Well, the US is one of only 2 countries in the world that taxes its citizens based on where they're from, not where they live. So if you live in pretty much any other country, there are ways to change your tax base from one country to another. That's a topic for another video. But one survey found that 42% of the people who are considering renouncing are doing it because of tax reasons. Another reason that a lot of people renounce is because it's really hard to open an offshore bank account as a US citizen. Now, it's always been hard, but it got a lot harder in 2010 when FATCA was passed, which is the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. And that's another long story, but it basically increased the administrative costs for banks to open accounts for US citizens.
And now we're on our third bank. Third time's a charm, perhaps.
But that's not enough of a reason either, because it's still possible to open a foreign bank account as an American. Sure, you might get turned away at certain banks. You might have to fill out more paperwork. It might be a lot harder, more frustrating, take more time. But these days, you might not even need a traditional bank account in the country that you're living in. With companies like Wise, Revolut, N26, and so many more, there are countless completely online global bank accounts or money transfer and Forex accounts that make it so that you can access, manage, and send money almost anywhere in the world for very little cost. This is something that used to be a huge headache, but in recent years, that problem has been solved.
And they were like, we have 1 minute. Like, we had to leave the bank, exit within 30 seconds, or they were gonna freak out.
Another reason that people say they want to renounce their US citizenship is because they've married someone else abroad. So the problem with being a US citizen and then marrying a foreigner is that then that person's income can also become taxable income, especially if you file jointly. But I see it from the opposite side. What if I renounce my US citizenship and then I meet my life partner who happens to be a US citizen and I can't even live in his home country? That presents a problem as well. This is one of those situations that doesn't really have a good solution because there's going to be problems if you're an American marrying a foreigner and living abroad, and also if you're an American who gave up their citizenship and then marries an American. You're back where you started. And a lot of people say that the reason they don't want to renounce their US citizenship is because the cost is so high. So it was raised from $400 to $2,350 in recent years. But to me, that's not even a consideration. I think that the peace of mind and the money that you would save on accountants and tax filings and paperwork and time would greatly outweigh the cost of renouncing. Even though I don't mind spending a few grand on renouncing my citizenship, I'm still not going to do it. The main reason why comes down to freedom, choices, and family. What I love about my location independent lifestyle, and I've been a digital nomad for a really long time, is that I can decide where I want to live and where I want to work. But if I decide to renounce my US citizenship today, I'm limiting my choices tomorrow. And then I have to explain to future Kristin a few decades from now why we can't go back to the US or have the risk of not being able to re-enter the US. Now, there are ways to, of course, travel to the US and visit the US for a certain number of days per year, depending on what your passport is, if you acquire a second passport. But it's never going to be as easy as just walking into the line for US citizens. I never want to be restricted from seeing my family members in the US, and I never want to run the risk of being turned away at the US border for whatever reason. The last year of the pandemic has really highlighted that potential risk. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but it's very possible that I might need to take care of a sick relative or an aging parent someday. I only have this one life, and so I want to be able to spend it with my family members in the US whenever I want for as long as I want. Now, maybe if I were a billionaire and I could fly my family out to me at any moment in time, that could change things as well. But I don't know, it's just impossible for me to put a price tag on the value of the time spent with my family, and time is a non-renewable resource. It's something that you can never get back. So it's a really important decision. Family is actually a reason that so many expats move back to their home countries after living abroad, because later in life, that time becomes more valuable. People might want to spend more time with their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, and that's not something that you can necessarily do from a beach in Costa Rica or Thailand or the Philippines or wherever. And, related to that, chances are I want to retire in a vineyard in Spain or France or Italy. So I might look back on this and be like, man, I should have renounced my citizenship. I never went back. I lived happily ever after somewhere else. It all worked out. I don't know what I want to do next year, let alone decades from now. And then another big reason that people renounce their citizenship is kind of mostly related to people's political ideology, their values, and really not resonating or agreeing with the principles of the United States and just not wanting to be a part of that system altogether. And while there are a lot of policies that I disagree with in the US, I don't feel so strongly about it that I feel like I need to renounce my citizenship. If anything, I am motivated to help try to change those things and become more politically active. But on the other hand, after traveling the world for so many years, I don't feel that kind of national tie to any country. I relate more with humanity and with the planet than I do with any sort of flag or national anthem. Sure, I'm going to root for the US in the Olympics and things like that, but I don't have my personal identity so wrapped up in the passport that I have. If anything, I wish I had like 5 extra passports, and getting additional passports is something that I plan to do in the future anyway, but you can do that without giving up your current citizenship, depending on which country you're from. According to an expat tax survey, 11% of respondents said that they were concerned about the political climate in the US, 10% were disappointed in the direction of the US government, and 8% felt like they just don't have strong ties to the US. So I wholly respect anyone that wants to renounce their US citizenship for whatever reason, those included. And in my interview with one of my YouTube subscribers named Erica, she explained her reasons for renouncing, and a lot of them had to do with her personal convictions and lifestyle, and I completely respect that. But that's still not a strong enough reason for me personally to want to renounce when I compare that to the trade-off of possibly being restricted from entering the US and restricted from seeing my friends and family. There's another thing too, when you really start to think about the long-term implications and kind of the day-to-day changes of giving up your US citizenship, that also means you're giving up your social security number. So if you're not yet vested in the social security system, that means you won't get social security, although you can always make other investments. But there are a lot of things that you might not think about, whether it's applying for a credit card in the US or applying for a job, that you can't necessarily do without a social security number. And even though I have never had a regular 9-to-5 salaried job and I've always worked for myself, it still makes me a little nervous to throw away my social security number in case I might need it in the future. In a perfect world, do I wish that the US would just overturn their territorial tax system and let citizens stop paying taxes when they move abroad? Yes. Is that ever going to happen? No. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time and energy wishing that things were different. I'm just going to take things as they are right now and make my decision based on that. And if you're wondering why I don't think that things will ever change, well, first and foremost, it's because US expats living abroad don't vote. We have the lowest voter turnout in the United States. So even though there are millions of Americans living abroad, we don't really use our voice. We're not politically active. We don't vote. We make the least amount of political contributions. And as we know, money talks when it comes to US policy. And we don't have much representation. If you're a Republican, you can join Republicans overseas, but Republicans overseas is not recognized by the RNC. If you are a Democrat, you can join Democrats Abroad, which actually is recognized by the DNC, and you can vote in primary elections, but you still don't have much representation, and there's no sort of expat lobby that's representing the needs of all US citizens abroad. So we have strength in numbers, but our power is very diluted because we are of different political parties and we're spread out over countries all around the world. So we don't vote, we're not politically involved, we don't pay as many taxes as stateside citizens, and we don't have official political representation. That makes it really hard to influence US policy. It's like out of sight, out of mind. In addition, only a few thousand people a year renounce their citizenship. So you might have heard these stats that like 3 times more people renounce their citizenship in 2020, and that is true, but the actual number, it only went up from 2,500 people to 6,000 people. And when you look at the population of the US, it's really a drop in the bucket. You might also think that with the rise in remote work, there's going to be more people living abroad and maybe we'll have more power and more sway over US tax policy. But I think the opposite is going to happen. I think that the more US citizens there are working remotely, the more oversight there's going to be on this to ensure that US citizens abroad are filing and paying their taxes accordingly. If anything, and I think that this is going to be a deeply unpopular idea, I think that the rise in remote work could lead to some sort of a centralized global tax system to catch people that aren't paying taxes in any country and to ensure that everyone is paying something somewhere. I've been able to live and work abroad in 60 plus countries in my career so far while maintaining my US citizenship. So while my life might be easier, might be less stressful, might be more carefree if I did renounce my citizenship, I still don't want to risk not being able to return to the US in the future or being limited in the amount of time I can spend with my friends and family. But what about you? After listening to my interview with Erica on why she renounced her citizenship and the reasons why I'm not going to, would you renounce? Why or why not? And is there one particular overarching reason in that decision, or is it a combination of a lot of little things? And if you personally know someone who's been thinking about renouncing their citizenship, feel free to share this video with them and give it a like too. Go for a walk. Oh, what's that? Okay, gotta take the dog out.